What is going on, guys? My name is Stuber, and I'm here to break down this 11-game NBA slate on Draftkings and PrizePicks.com. If you guys could hit that subscribe button and like button, that would be greatly appreciated. As well, if you have any questions at all about this slate, make sure to comment down below, and I will try to get to as many of them as I possibly can. But again, guys, I will be live streaming a full hour before lock at 5 p.m. Central Time, so make sure to be there. I'm breaking down all the latest breaking news, and with there being 11 games on the slate, there is bound to be a plentiful amount of news to break down. So I'm going to be going over that, as well as answering as many questions as I possibly can within that hour. So if you guys make sure to hit that subscribe button, not only is it greatly appreciated, but it will always alert you when I end up going live, as well as posting these daily videos, because I am here every single day. If you guys want to know exactly what I'm playing on FanDuel, DraftKings, or PrizePicks.com, make sure to check out my Patreon. That is linked down below. $25 a month, I think, is a pretty damn good deal. And if you guys want to join my Discord, that is completely free. About 1,700 members in there right now. That is also linked below. But let's just jump right into the slate, guys. So we will start up top with the Boston Celtics versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. A 200 over-under. The Celtics are currently 2.5-point favorites. A 200 over-under, man. I have not seen over-unders this low since like 2014, around that time, a little before then. So these are some pretty low over-unders we got. They actually just played the other day, and it hit the under 200. It was like 190. So the Celtics, they are going to be without Jaylen Brown and Broderick Thomas. Josh Richardson and Al Horford should be returning after the one-game absences. So this team is a lot healthier than they were last time out. Dennis Schroeder has been starting in place of Jaylen Brown, who is out again. In these games, or so far this year, he has a 28% usage rating with a 24.1 assist percentage. He's playing big minutes, so really the only guy that I'm considering from this Boston Celtics team in a very low scoring game environment. On the Cleveland Cavaliers side, they are going to be without Colin Sexton, Larry Markkinen, Kevin Love, and then Lamar Stevens is questionable. He ended up missing last game. Without Lamar Stevens last game, they ran a 9-man rotation. If he returns, we probably go back to an 8-man rotation. But the minutes of Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, Ricky Rubio seem to be relatively secure. Although, you know, Allen's minutes got scaled back pretty considerably last game. And then Evan Mobley, I mean, he's playing like 40 minutes a game. And we could see that continue with all these front court guys out with like Kevin Love and Larry Markkinen. Don't mind Mobley, Garland, and Ricky Rubio here from the Cleveland side. Move over to the Sacramento Kings versus the Detroit Pistons at 212.5 over under. The Kings are currently 4.5-point favorites. The Kings have no injuries right now. Tyrese Halliburton ended up returning last game after his back injury and played 35 minutes, so I think he's good to go moving forward. And then Chimezie Metu ended up starting last game over Maurice Harkless, played 24 minutes. I think he's definitely viable at $3,500, especially in this matchup against a weak Detroit Pistons front court. So if he's starting again, don't mind him at $3,500. He shot 12 times in 24 minutes. So if he's going to start, yeah, I don't mind him as one of the better value plays on the slate. Also don't mind De'Aaron Fox and Harrison Barnes from the Sacramento side, just given how many minutes that they are playing currently. And it looks like De'Aaron Fox, you know, outside of last game, but the few games before that, he was much more aggressive. Maybe that has to do with Tyrese Halliburton being out those previous games, and then he has another dud game, the game that Halliburton ruled out. Not sure, but I think he's entirely too cheap given his price tag. Move over to the Detroit Pistons. Kelly Olynyk and Chris Smith are both out. Like I said, Isaiah Stewart, even at this price tag at $5,000, is entirely too cheap if he can avoid foul trouble. But avoiding foul trouble is quite the struggle for Isaiah Stewart. He was able to avoid it last time and played 32.5 minutes, ended up putting up 33 fantasy points. He's a very good play if he can avoid that foul trouble. The first game that Kelly Olynyk was out, he ended up picking up 2 immediate fouls, and then the game ended up blowing out. So it just wasn't a good time for Isaiah Stewart. But if you are willing to take the risk of the foul trouble, I think he's a fine play at $5,000. And then Cade Cunningham, I think, is a bit too cheap at $5,500. Move over to the New Orleans Pelicans versus the Washington Wizards at 213.5 over under. The Wizards are currently 3-point favorites. They are going to be without Zion Williamson and Dalton Holmes. So Brandon Ingram returned last game, ended up playing 29.5 minutes. And with him being back, it really just kills the value of the majority of these guys like Devontae Graham, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. It is a bit of a bump down to a guy like Jonas Valanciunas, but Jonas Valanciunas gets the best front court matchup in the entire league. Should absolutely dismantle this Washington Wizards team. He's playing big minutes right now. Brandon Ingram being in, out, doesn't really matter to me. $9,100 is a fair price tag for him in this matchup. Game should be competitive. One of the better game environments on the entire slate. So I love Jonas Valanciunas today. One of my favorite spend ups of the day. Moving to the Washington Wizards, Bradley Beal, Rui Hachimura, Thomas Bryant, Davis Bertans, they are all out. Raul Neto. So originally I thought Neto would gain more minutes with Bradley Beal being out, which Bradley Beal is out in this game, and he was out last game. But it looks like the Wizards only trust Neto and Spencer Dinwiddie to run the offense. So their minutes they split all 48 point guard minutes, with Dinwiddie playing 31 and Neto playing 17. So I thought that he would end up playing more than Aaron Holiday, because Neto was playing bigger minutes before then. He was playing 22, 26, 22, even 18 was more than what he got last time out. So he's serving as the direct backup to Spencer Dinwiddie while Bradley Beal is out, just because they don't really trust anybody else running the offense. So can't really consider Neto, considering he's only going to play that much. But Aaron Holiday, on the other hand, is serving as a true shooting guard. Played 35 minutes last time, really just like taking the role that Bradley Beal had in terms of minutes. So yeah, I mean, I don't mind Aaron Holiday at 3,500, considering he's playing this much. He has point guard and shooting guard eligibility, which makes it a lot easier to play him. And then I think Spencer Dinwiddie, Kyle Kuzma are in obvious great spots. I mean, the New Orleans Pelicans have been one of the worst defenses in the entire league, and I actually don't mind their overs over here on Prize Picks. Man, the Bobby Portis thing yesterday, we missed by like half a point. Clint Capella cleared pretty easily, so that was a tough outing over on Prize Picks. But the in-game showdown stuff hits yet again. I mean, dude, I'm telling you, playing second half and fourth quarter in-game showdown stuff on Prize Picks is the way to go, because they just don't correct the projections accurately, because we knew that DeMar DeRozan and Eric Bledsoe were pretty much going to play the entire fourth quarter yesterday. They both hit those pretty easily. They don't have fantasy scores up yet, just quite yet on Prize Picks, but I do like the overs on Spencer Dinwiddie and Kyle Kuzma real points so far. I like the over Kyle Kuzma 17.5 points right now. Keep watching the video. We'll add somebody else to this list. And then Daniel Gafford, for the first time in a long time at $4,300, ended up playing more minutes than Montrezl Harrell. We just really have not seen that very much this year, and that ended up happening last game. Unfortunately, he dudded in that game, but at least that kept his price down. So at $4,300, I don't mind Daniel Gafford, because he last year averaged nearly 1.3 fantasy points per minute. Very good per minute producer. Hasn't really showed it much recently, but I feel pretty confident that that is going to return at some point. Move over to the Orlando Magic versus the Atlanta Hawks. Onyeka Okongwu and DeAndre Hunter are out. DeAndre Hunter missed we'll start with the Orlando side. Michael Carter-Williams, Markelle Fultz, Jonathan Isaac, Etuan Moore are out. Jalen Suggs is questionable. If he were to be ruled out, it'd be a bump in minutes to guys like Terrence Ross and RJ Hampton. But again, I'm not really considering them all that much. I guess Terrence Ross, if he got the spot start, wouldn't be too bad of a play. But man, he has been abysmal from a fantasy standpoint. So far this year, the Atlanta Hawks have the worst half-court defense in the entire league, largely due to Clint Capella, who's been getting kind of tortured lately. So Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter Jr. have very, very good matchups here. But I'm really not considering anybody from this Orlando team. Move over to the Atlanta Hawks side. They are going to be without Onyeka Okongwu and DeAndre Hunter. Kevin Huerter started in place of DeAndre Hunter yesterday and played 33 minutes at $3,800 with guard and forward eligibility. One of the best value plays on the entire slate. Like Kevin Huerter quite a bit with no Hunter. And then Clint Capella at $7,000. He's just like the beacon of safety. I mean, he's going to play 32, 34 minutes a game. Definitely going to need his size against Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter Jr., the jumbo front court of the Orlando Magic. Sometimes the Hawks like to go small, but you can't really do that against this Orlando Magic team. So Clint Capella should play his full allotment of minutes. And I'm sure over here on PrizePicks, once they drop the fantasy score stuff, Clint Capella is going to be like 30 or 31 fantasy points. And I'm going to take the over yet again. Continues to pay off for us. If you guys are a part of the Patreon, I'll make sure to drop that official play whenever those fantasy scores end up going up on PrizePicks. Move over to the Indiana Pacers versus the New York Knicks at 216 over under. The Knicks are currently 3.5 point favorites. The Pacers, they are going to be without TJ Warren, Isaiah Jackson. Chris Duarte is questionable. If Chris Duarte were to miss this game, it would open up wing minutes for guys like Justin Holiday, Torrey Craig, Keelan Martin, but specifically Justin Holiday, who I would expect to get the start. He would become a good play at 3,900. I would still slightly prefer Kevin Huerter. But I still think that both of them would be solely in play. Karis LeVert returned last game and played 25 minutes. Was told that he wasn't going to play high 30s minutes, or deep 30s minutes rather, was the quote. But he had already played 34 minutes not too long ago, so I think we should expect somewhere in that 32 to 34 minute range out of him in a good matchup against the New York Knicks. And he's only $6,700. I think that is way too cheap for Karis LeVert. I prefer him point per dollar wise to guys like Sabonis and Malcolm Brogdon. On the New York Knicks side, they are healthy outside of Nerlens Noel, who is questionable. If Nerlens Noel is ruled out, I think Mitchell Robinson probably sees his upper range of minutes in that 28 to 30 minute range against the jumbo size front court of the Indiana Pacers with Domantas Sabonis and Miles Turner. So if Nerlens Noel is ruled out, I don't mind Mitchell Robinson at $4,000. If Noel is in, I'm not considering really anybody on this team. And again, guys, Kemba Walker, Derrick Rose, each and every game, one of these guys is going to destroy their price tag because they are splitting all 48 point guard minutes, and that is all. They're not playing next to each other. And whoever is playing better is going to play around 30 minutes. So we saw last game, Kemba Walker played well. He played 31 minutes, scored 39 fantasy points. The game before that, Derrick Rose played well, played 30 minutes, scored 47 fantasy points. So guessing between Kemba Walker and Derrick Rose every day could become very, very fruitful if you can guess correctly. I always slightly lean with Kemba Walker just because he is the starter, so he gets the first chance to get hot, and that's what they've been running, just a true hot hand approach to that situation. But both of those guys end up becoming very, very low owned, and one of them ends up blowing up every single slate, and nobody is really catching on to that. Move over to the Denver Nuggets versus the Dallas Mavericks at 209.5 over under. The Mavericks are currently 4.5 point favorites. The Nuggets are going to be without Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Flacco Kankar, and then Will Barton, Austin Rivers are questionable. So Will Barton was a late scratch yesterday. Austin Rivers ended up starting in his place, but Austin Rivers himself ended up going to the locker room mid-third quarter, then the game blew out. So not sure on the status of Will Barton, Austin Rivers. But them being out definitely opens up minutes for guys like Monty Morris. Specifically, I think Monty Morris gets the biggest bump if Will Barton is ruled out, just because his minutes are already relatively secure around 30. And his role, offensive role, from a usage and assist percentage standpoint, seemed to be on the rise with no Will Barton. Nikola Jokic is my favorite spend-up option on the slate. Since the beginning of last year with no Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., he has a 35.5% usage rating, 20.7 total rebound percentage, 39.6 assist percentage, while averaging 1.81 fantasy points per minute. Only played 28 minutes last night because they blew out the Trailblazers, so it is the second leg of a back-to-back, but he didn't get his full complement of minutes, so I like Nikola Jokic an absolute ton today, and definitely need to wait on the status of guys like Will Barton and Austin Rivers, because that could create some even more value from that Nuggets side. Move over to the Dallas Mavericks. They're going to be without Maxi Kleber. Jalen Brunson's minutes continue to trend downwards as Kristaps Porzingis plays more minutes as he gets healthier naturally. So Kristaps ended up playing 34 minutes last game, so Jalen Brunson's minutes were cut back down to 27. So not really considering him at 5,800, but I think Porzingis, since he did play 34 minutes, he's definitely in the full swing of things. He has a 28.4% usage rating this year, which is up from last year. And he is only $7,000. Now, Nikola Jokic has been very good defensively this year so far, but I still think that Kristaps Porzingis at $7,000 is a bit too cheap. And the Nuggets have literally nobody to guard Luka Doncic if Will Barton is out. I think that Will Barton would be used defensively on him a ton in this game. But if Will Barton is ruled out, Luka Doncic, probably the second best spend-up option on this slate, just behind Nikola Jokic in the same exact game. Move over to the Houston Rockets versus the Memphis Grizzlies. A 220.5 over under. The Grizzlies are currently 11-point favorites. So 11-point favorites, huge blowout risk in this game. The Rockets are going to be without John Wall. Yeah, very, very good matchup against the Memphis Grizzlies. Grizzlies, huge pace-up team and very, very poor defensively to begin the year. So if this game can stay competitive, I mean, the minutes are really secure in competitive games from guys like Christian Wood, Kevin Porter Jr., Jayshawn Tate, Jalen Green. But Kevin Porter Jr., far and away my favorite play from this Houston Rockets team. If this game can stay close. On the Grizzlies side, Killian Tilly is questionable, but he's not really a part of the rotation anyways. Dillon Brooks has returned and played in 2 games, a 30.8% usage rating so far, has put up 17 and 18 shot attempts. So Dillon Brooks, if he wasn't $6,500, I would really like the over. Or I would really like to play Dillon Brooks. Where I'm going to get my action on Dillon Brooks, though, is over here on PrizePicks. His minutes should continue to rise. I'm expecting his usage rating to actually sit around 28%, somewhere around that range this year. So him being at 30% right now is not a far cry from what should actually be his usage rate this year. So I'm going to take the over on Kyle Kuzma, 17.5 real points, and Dillon Brooks over 17.5 real points. I think both these guys are in really good spots today. My official play will be out on the Patreon later on in the day. Yeah, Steven Adams, man, played 37 minutes last time out after playing 22 minutes the game before. I mean, his minutes are literally all over the place. If I knew that he was going to play 30 plus minutes, he would be entirely too cheap at 5,100. But yeah, with Dillon Brooks being out, DeAnthony Melton has taken the biggest blow to his minutes, his play, just 17 and 19 minutes in each of the last 2 games, with Dillon Brooks returning. Not really considering anybody on that Grizzlies team though. Move over to the Phoenix Suns versus the Minnesota Timberwolves at 221.5 over under. The Suns are currently 3.5 point favorites. The Suns are going to be without Darius Saric. DeAndre Ayton is questionable. So if DeAndre Ayton were to miss, I would like JaVale McGee quite a bit. JaVale actually played more minutes than Frank Kaminsky for the second time through the 6 games that DeAndre Ayton has missed. If we see a similar situation like that, 4,200 is entirely too cheap. I mean, dude, he played 25 minutes to put up 47 fantasy points. We know how good he is on a permanent basis. So if DeAndre Ayton is out, I'm assuming McGee gets to start again, and I would like McGee quite a bit. That's really all that I'm considering from the Phoenix side. Move over to the Timberwolves. They have no injuries. Patrick Beverley was on track to see 30 plus minutes again. He is only 4,100. One of my favorite value plays on the slate. The game ended up blowing out, but if the game was competitive, he would have ended up playing 30, 31, 32 minutes. And I think D'Angelo Russell is a bit too cheap at 7.1K. Move over to the Miami Heat versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. A 210.5 over under. The Heat are currently 9.5 point favorites. The Heat are going to be without Victor Oladipo, Markieff Morris, and then Jimmy Butler is questionable. So the status of this game, this slate, is pretty indicative, or just lies solely on whether Jimmy Butler is in or out. If he is ruled out, Bam Adebayo, Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, PJ Tucker become elite plays. I think Bam Adebayo is in an amazing matchup, regardless of Jimmy Butler being healthy or not. But if he is healthy, there is some serious blowout risk here. Although the Thunder do typically keep it close with teams. I know they got blown out with the Nets yesterday, but it was relatively close through the first 2.5 quarters. But yeah, I mean, if Jimmy Butler is out, I'm totally fine with playing 3 or 4 of these guys. If he is ruled in, not really considering anybody outside of Bam Adebayo and then PJ Tucker, should continue to see extended minutes with no Markieff Morris. Move over to the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm expecting Jeremiah Robinson Earl to get the start here in a matchup against Bam Adebayo. typically Derek Favors would start, but I think Jeremiah Robinson Earl gets the start in this matchup. He should play like low to mid 20 minutes. He's a fine value play, I suppose, in tournaments. And then if this game is competitive and you're playing Miami guys, you're going to want to bring it back with some of them. Some of these Oklahoma City guys, my preference would be guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and then Lou Dort, given his price tag at $5,000. Move over to the Toronto Raptors versus the Portland Trailblazers at 212.5 over under. The Trailblazers are currently 1.5 point favorites. The Raptors are going to be without Yuta Watanabe, Fred VanVleet, Chris Boucher, and Precious Achiuwa are all questionable. Pascal Siakam played 34.5 minutes last time, so it looks like his minutes limit is pretty much gone. He should continue to see his minutes rise, and if there is no Fred VanVleet, he is entirely too cheap at $8,300. He completely runs this offense with no Fred VanVleet. But obviously, we don't have that news. This game starts 3 hours after lock. We saw OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, and Gary Trent Jr. play around 38 minutes last game with no Fred. So the minutes are very, very condensed here. And then Goran Dragic started in his place, played 28 minutes as the starter. So if Fred VanVleet is ruled out, the entire starting lineup of the Toronto Raptors is definitely in play given their price tags. So I would love those guys. I'm imagining I'm going to take the overs on their fantasy points over here on Prize Picks once they end up dropping those, but gonna need to wait on the news of Fred VanVleet. Move on to the Portland Trailblazers. Damian Lillard is questionable. It looks like he was really close to playing yesterday, but he's still dealing with that abdominal injury that he sustained in the Olympics. But it looks like more times than not, he's probably going to play in this game. And then at $9,200, he's entirely too cheap. He has been shooting much better as of recent than he did to begin the year. So assuming he starts, I love him. If he's ruled out, then CJ McCollum and Anthony Simons become two of the best plays on the entire slate. Move over to the last game of the slate, the Chicago Bulls versus the Los Angeles Lakers at 218.5 over under. The Lakers are currently 1 point favorites. The Bulls are going to be without Nikola Vucevic and Patrick Williams. Kobe White is set to make his debut here after being injured and then being sent down to the G League to ramp up his minutes, but it kind of kills the value of all of the bench guys on this team. I guess Alex Caruso is still fine, but he's definitely going to be fighting for minutes with Kobe White, so I don't think he's going to play upwards of 40 minutes now like he did last night. So not interested in Kobe White at all, but definitely kills some of the bench value of these guys. And then I think Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, they have not adjusted their prices to Nikola Vucevic being out, and Kobe White being back doesn't really matter. All of the usage on this team is between LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. I think that they are both squarely in play, especially given the matchup against the Los Angeles Lakers, who have just been very, very abysmally bad so far. And, you know, I was talking about Nikola Jokic earlier being my favorite spin-up option. That's raw projection-wise. From a point per dollar spin-up option, Anthony Davis is by far my favorite spin-up option on the slate. The Lakers are going to be without LeBron James, Austin Reeves, Kendrick Nunn, Trevor Ariza. Yeah, every time Anthony Davis is on the slate, I'm seemingly touting him, but he has been paying off pretty much every single time. The only times he's not playing it off is when games blow out and he only plays 31 minutes, but he still puts up 46 fantasy points in that time. So I love Anthony Davis today. Yeah, my favorite point per dollar spin-up option on the slate. Love him way more than Russell Westbrook. Should be able to abuse Tony Bradley, Alize Johnson, Derrick Jones Jr., whoever they have in the front court for the Chicago Bulls. Cannot keep up with Anthony Davis. And then Talon Horton-Tucker returned yesterday, debuted, was in the starting lineup, played 27 minutes, and is only $3,000, the bare minimum price, the best point per dollar play on the entire slate. I'm expecting him to continue to play high 20s, low 30s minutes. Love him at $3,000. Just go ahead and slam him into your lineups. Has guard and forward eligibility, so a lot of flexibility to get him in your lineup. But if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like. Let's try to get to over 100 likes. If you guys haven't subscribed already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I will be live an hour before lock at 5 p.m. Central Time. But I appreciate you guys being here. Best of luck tonight. And until next time, peace.